Last
Yeah, I
Sunday,
just see.
last Sunday, yeah, it was Sunday. We just went into the New Jerusalem, and I gave you a lot of supporting scriptures, how you can find information that was being directed toward the New Jerusalem through the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. I hope everybody had a chance to review those. Well, it's a lot of scriptures. It might take you a while. But the purpose of that lesson was just to show you how throughout the Bible, the New Jerusalem has always been mentioned, rather inferred to by certain words, phrases, but it was there. And the hope was that when you read those scriptures, it will jog your memories and your thought to know what it's talking about, because many times a lot of people was reading these scriptures and they did not have any idea what it was referring to. They was reading it but didn't study it. So what I want to do today is take you back to the New Jerusalem. I hope those of you that can see my screen and see my what I have, but the beautiful and magnificent city, the New Jerusalem. Revelations 21 and 1 says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and the first heaven and the first earth was passed away, and there was no more sea. Second verse. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with man, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he said, that sat up on the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. So I want to talk today about that beautiful and magnificent city, the New Jerusalem that we talked about in Revelations 21. Now, for some of you who did not make it in last week, we know that there was a lot of conversation, and this is another part of the study in the book of Revelations. I hope my words are big enough, because I was told last week they weren't big enough. I made them bigger today. So the question I have, just how magnificent will the New Jerusalem be? Because we know John tried in his best to write what he saw. But I am convinced that even though he tried to put it in words some 2,500 years ago, might have been 2,200 years ago, that he still was not able to tell us and define to us what it was he saw and make it real to us, because I don't believe words can be said or mentioned that can identify just what the New Jerusalem looks like. It's magnificent as we listen to what God even says. We're going to go through that. Can the beauty be explained to be put into words? I don't think so. Although when I did my study, and I'm sure some of you have seen pictures where people try to portray the image of that New Jerusalem based upon what they interpret from the scriptures to insinuate. Some of those pictures look really good. Some of them are very impressive, but I don't think they still can. Uh, how can you put in words something you have never seen? It's difficult, and the words you use may not be uh, interpretive enough where the listener can understand what it is that you're saying. So, I mean, all of these are issues. The magnificent beauty of the New Jerusalem, and I want to go through that. Although we read uh, Revelations, the 21st chapter, and they talked about it. These are some of the key words that we find in the 21st chapter of Revelations. Let's go through those. I'm going to hide myself so that way you can see more of the screen. It says it's a holy city. We've all used that word holy, but can you imagine what a holy city looks like. By definition, we understand that the devil will be cast into the bottomless pit. Wait a minute. At this time, I'm thinking of the millennium. At this time, he is thrown into the lake of fire. So the demons and everything, nothing's going to be there that will cause any sin at all in that holy city. Jesus is the light of the city. Can you even imagine that? Where the beauty of the Lord is radiant in this city. Now, can you? It's difficult to imagine what type of light that will be when we speak of how huge this city is going to be. That Jesus being the light is going to be reflected throughout the whole city. That's undescribable. A place that's free from sin. It's sinless, in other words. We don't have to deal with that. Anything that Satan and his demons would bring to us, it's over. They're finished. It says that the New Jerusalem is a gift from God. Now, do you expect God to give us anything less than his finest and his greatest? It says it's a city for the victorious believers. The victorious believers are those who overcome, who was washed in the blood of the Lamb. Those who now have been transformed. Their bodies are now has been changed, where our immortal bodies, where we will not get sick. We're not subject to sin anymore. We will have bodies that we can live forever, and we need that because in this glorious city, this magnificent city we're going to, it's where we will be there forever. There will not be any more dying going on. Let's continue on with that. We call the New Jerusalem the tabernacle of God. The word tabernacle is reflected back to the Genesis uh, uh, book where it described the tabernacle. When we talk about the tabernacle of God and all the emphasis that God did and used to make the tabernacle a great place for it to be, where they ended up, that was a tent that they move around, but it led up to the time when they had the building made, the temple of God on earth, the Jerusalem, in Jerusalem that was built. But this temple of God is going to be much different. It's not going to be tempted or destroyed by sin. But we have to look at one thing is that there's not a tabernacle because Jesus and the Lamb of God is the tabernacle. We'll look at that. Look at this. We, the church, the bride of Christ. That's who we will be. That's going to be with the Lord is going to be in this magnificent city. When we use the word bride, we always think of the beauty of a marriage where the bride is coming down. However, I like to say this, but actually the world has that twisted because the main character of the wedding in heaven is not the the church. The church is resemblance to the bride, but it's Christ. Christ is the main character. But when we're on earth, we think of the woman, she's the main character, and the man is just, he's just there, he showed up, so to speak. But anyway, the church, you know how much emphasis is put on there for the bride, how she's dressed and how she's fixed up. But the church, we, God's own chosen people, will be the bride that comes down before him. In this holy city, the great Jerusalem, there's no more tears, there's no more pain. I don't know about you, but it's unimaginable to think that I'll be in a place where we don't have to see tears no more. No more pain, where people complaining and hurting, bodies breaking down, because we're getting old and can't do what we used to do. But God is going to wipe all, that's going to be gone. There's no more pain. There won't even be the sun and the moon. And the reason of that is because there's no need for the sun or any other artificial light because Jesus himself will be the light of the city. The heavenly city, which we're talking about, that is brought down from heaven down to the earth, is going to be fixed with such love and such honor and glory that I believe that the moment we were able to feast our eyes upon that New Jerusalem, we will be speechless. We be in great praise. I can see why it says that the angels will be saying, holy, holy, holy. What more can you say because of the greatness of what you will see and the greatness of who God is? This is all done for us. It's done for us and our joy to be in this place. It's just wonderful. That's all I can say. It's just a wonderful place. I'm going to change something again on my screen here. Let's see. There you go. So when we look at this and we think about the things that's going on, okay, in this heavenly city, even in my most drastic imaginations, I can't draw a picture up for you to put you there. So you have to use your own mind in thinking of how your relationship is with God, that God would give you such a gift as the New Jerusalem, that heavenly city. It is unimaginable. But let's look at more details. I'm going to come back on some of these things because these things are mentioned in Scripture, and I'm hoping to feel what God, in your mind, what God is trying to say here. The fountain of water of life is going to be in that city. Now, everybody talks about the tree of life, but there's going to be a fountain of water of life, which is mentioned there, that you drink from gives you everlasting life. The tree of life that you eat from, that assists, and I'm not for sure it's even necessary, but if you look at it, the tree of life was put in the Garden of Eden. It's no more than honorable, I believe, that same tree that Adam and Eve disrespected, it was removed from them, will also be in the New Jerusalem. The good aspect of that is the same tree that Adam and Eve ate from will be available for us to eat from in the New Jerusalem. But let's go a little farther. Not only will you eat from the same tree, you will be able to see Adam and Eve in the garden because they're going to be there too. That's just wonderful. Okay, let's look at this. You have been praying so hard, calling out for God. You've been witnessing and testifying about God himself, but you will be able to see God's face. Oh my God. Are y'all ready for that? You'll be able to see his face. I know I won't know what to say. I'm going to be in such awe. I probably still be in so much joy that I can't respond, but there's going to be so much given to you to understand that God's love for you has been fulfilled in this city, that I believe you will be overwhelmed. But since you have immortal bodies and a new mindset, I'm not for sure how we would act. But I can imagine in my present mind, it would be overwhelming to me. Not to mention, we will have direct fellowship with God. Can you imagine that? We come here every Sunday or every Tuesday. We talk about the Lord. We pray to the Lord. But can you imagine now, no more needing to pray? Can go to him, see him in his face, and have direct fellowship with God. Oh my goodness. We eat from the same tree that Adam and Eve ate from. Everything is new. You know how excited when you buy new clothes, or buy a new car, buy a new home. All of these things that brings you joy and is peace. Can you imagine everything? Everything being new. That's what the Lord said. All things will be new. Everything, including you. You have new hands, new feet, new head, hair. Everything is new. Everything you look around is going to be new. You'll see new people that you never ever saw before, but you've been studying and reading about them in the Old Testament. Wonderful. Now, I remember hearing this a great deal. A lot of times people talk about in the New Jerusalem. You ask them, what do you know about the New Jerusalem? The first thing a lot of people will say, there be streets of gold in the New Jerusalem. Well, that's one of the precious things that you will find in the New Jerusalem streets that are gold, but it's a type of gold that it will be transparent almost. I can't imagine how gold can be transparent, but we'll talk about that a little later too. Everything in the city will reflect the light of God. This is the beauty of it. It radiates with God in everything from the top to the bottom, from the sides, wherever it is. Every element of every object in the new city will reflect the presence and the light of God. Everything. What a mighty God. God and the Lamb are the city's temple. I mentioned that earlier. There's no need for a temple because Christ is the temple. Let's talk about a river that flows down the middle of the street. Flows down the middle of the street. Wow. I can imagine what that looks like. But the tree of life will be planted on each side of this river. Now, there's many questions that come up about this. How is it a tree or is it trees? Is it plural or is it singular? I don't care. God do whatever he wants to do, however he wants to make it look. It's up to him to do that. All I know is that it's going to be the joy and the beauty of it is there for us to enjoy. The city have no darkness and there be no night. Why? Because Christ, who is the light of the city, radiates 24/7. His light will never go out. There will never be darkness in his presence. And this New Jerusalem, as the scripture says, is forever and ever. We're going to look at the city is square as the holy of holy in the earthly temple. Now, when we look at the description of the New Jerusalem, it's very interesting, but I don't know exactly how to understand it, but I don't want to make an attempt to it. When it speaks of being square as the holy of holies in the earthly temple, in the tabernacle, we know that there was a place within the temple called the Holy of Holies. That's only where the priest could actually go into. It was square, and there's a reason for that, and hopefully I'll be able to help you understand that. Now, there are some things that is also mentioned in this New Jerusalem. It said that the tree of life bears 12 kinds of fruit. The fruit is not listed. Now, it also says that it bears fruit monthly. Now, it doesn't say whether it's a different fruit every month or it's delivering the same type of different fruits monthly each month. I don't know how to arrange it. Neither does it give us details of what type of fruit it is. However, in Galatians 5, verses 22 and 23, it does mention fruit of the Spirit, which there is not 12 of them, but some add some other things to it. But if you read Galatians 5, it says charity, which is love, joy, peace, purity, goodness and mercy, kindness, faith, longevity, mildness, that's an add, goodness, fruitfulness, and knowledge. Because I believe there's only listed 8 or 9 things. So when you go through this, we find through scripture that it does mention the fruit as these other words that's not mentioned in Galatians 5:22. So that's just a start. But we already know that those who love Christ already bears the fruit of the Spirit. And we already know that that's love and joy, peace, and all of that, goodness, faith, mercy. All of this is what a child of God will possess. Now, there's another part of this city that is exciting. 12 beautiful foundations of the city. If you look at this, I've heard and read, and some people differ on their understanding, that this has foundations that has 12 layers to it. Now, I don't know why he needed 12 foundations, but I think it's because of I wanted to occupy and also bring to you the richness of stones and gems that we worship on earth for our understanding. I believe that revelation has been given to us to understand in our earthly mindset. So these things are used so we people now can enjoy what God is doing. I believe it's used so that we can be excited about God's promises, indicating that everything that God does is great and for us. When we look at these foundations, this jasper, the emerald, and topaz, and all of that, there's 12 of them there, that these are things that on earth that we consider to be expensive, a great value. But it's 12 foundations, all with those. Then there's 12 tribes of Israel. What was the 12 tribes of Israel? Well, the foundations of this city were built on 12 layers, 12 foundations, but each foundation was a representation of the 12 tribes of Israel. The names are there: Reuben, Simeon, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Ephraim, Manasseh. These things that we need to remember. All the way back from the beginning, God's words meant something. As you study about these, you will understand that God never turned his back on anyone or anything that he used in the past to bring about change for his people, leading all the way up to the New Jerusalem, which has not even happened yet. But because of Revelation, the book explains to us what will happen yet in the future. But these things are in the past. Now, I think there's great beauty in understanding that, because today many people try to say that the Jews are insignificant now, that the Jews is not necessary for us to retain the spirituality of God's words, that the Jews were history. Now, that's something that was tried to portray through the word. That's why even in Ezekiel, when he talked about that, the dry bones, that the people tried to make the Jews disappear, but God brought them back to existence and to their own nation again in 1948. So the foundations of the new city is built on the 12 tribes of Israel. There's a significance there. Now, when you look at foundations, I think the foundation, and this is Al speaking because I can't find it necessarily in the word, it just seems to insinuate that if you got a foundation, it's going to sit on something, which indicates to me this new city is coming down to a new world. Why do I say that? As we just read in Revelations, the 21st chapter, that the old world and the heavens will be destroyed, and there will be a new heaven and a new earth. Well, this New Jerusalem is coming down. It wouldn't make sense to put something new and of that great value on an old world that's contaminated. God will redo this world, make it new, bring down the New Jerusalem from heaven, and it will sit on the new earth. That's the way I see it. If you study it, maybe you can help me. But wait a minute. In this city, we know that there's 12 gates or pearls. They call the pearly gates. Each gate is a pearl. Wow. You see how much we stumble over what our pearls are worth and the beauty of the pearls? But one gate is going to be made out of one pearl. That's amazing. But the beauty and the value of that, each gate a pearl, great and high walls. And in these walls, the gates will be in it. Now, you've heard the songs and you made it sing. There are 12 gates in the city. And it goes on and on. It talks about the 24 elders of the city. Well, these gates uh, are valuable. I don't know exactly how big it is, but when you read this about the height of the walls, it sounds like the walls are approximately 70 some feet high. Well, why do you need walls? There's no sin to keep out. There's no problem, but the walls are there. God's got a reason for that. And then at every gate, there's an angel. I've heard some people say that the angels will be used as greeters for those who are coming in. If that's the case, I got some more studying to do because I have no idea who's coming in when we ought to be already in the city. But I have to study on that. Angels at each gate and represents the 12 apostles. Each gate with an angel. The gate out of pearl, made out of one pearl, is the 12 apostles. Don't get mixed up with the disciples. However, the disciples, the apostles that we read here were disciples, but there was a transformation that Jesus did. I believe I can find that in Matthew, because when he went out and had this summoned some of his own to go out, he made those that his trusted ones to be apostles. This is where I get the understanding that who is called an apostle. People running around with the name cannot be called apostles unless God or Jesus himself appointed them for that purpose. And that was during the time of Christ. And when those apostles died, there were no more apostles. You don't just get an apostleship because you want to be apostle today. Everybody wants a title. But when you look at this, these gates represent the apostles of Christ. They're there. Now, the number 12 comes up again. Stata is what the word is used here, but it says, they talk about the city, it says that the city was 12,000 stata by 12,000 stata by 12,000 stata. Left some numbers off of that. High. That means all sides were equal. The length, the width, and the depth were all the same. If you look at that, the Greek unit of length for stata equals 185 meters or 607 feet. And it was 12,000 stata high, long, and wide. When we look at the number 12, it represents completion. I think we need to take time and really meditate on what God is saying and what God is doing. This city is huge. It's a cube. It's a square. I've heard people try to lay out what all that would be. But I heard a man just the other night say, when I was listening to him in the study, he said, if you take this number in height, that it will be, oh, what did he say? Some 30 some times greater than the height in height than where the airplanes fly. Airplanes fly at around 30,000 feet. Is my understanding the height of this city will be at least three times higher than that. You'd have to do the calculations. I can get that for you and bring it back. Well, if it's that high, it's also that wide, and it's also that long. So that get misinterpretations, but I've heard that a high-rise building, if it had 30 floors, was over 3,000 some odd floors short than what this building would be if it had to go up. Now, I may not be right on those numbers, but what I'm trying to get you to understand is this is a huge place. The idea is because the people that's going to be in this city are those that from the beginning of time all the way to the time that the Christ-like people, God's glorious believers, will enter into this city that he will bring in there. That's a lot of people. If I'm not mistaken, even on that number, I've had people try to figure out how many billions of people that would be, and it would be a huge number over the number of people that's existing in the entire world even today. So it's amazing what God has done. What is the purpose of this city? God has let us be known that everything he promised you, he's going to do it. It's yours. Everything that we long for. I believe that this inscription that we see through John is for us to not be discouraged, to get some insight on the place that he's preparing for us. All those days you don't sit up crying, worrying about the joys of life seems to be taken away. The pains that your body goes through because it seems like life is passing you by and your aches and pains. But God has just told us to just hold on. The description of the New Jerusalem is to let you know just how much joy God has in giving you what he has already promised you. Don't give up. It's there. He's got it. And in some ways, I believe that it's already built up in heaven, just waiting to be occupied. I think he's just waiting for that special time. As we talked a few weeks ago about the tradition of the Jewish wedding, when the groom had to go build the house for his bride, I believe Christ has done the same thing. So just like he's waiting for the church to come up when he raptures us up out of here, he has built a home. He said, I go to prepare a place for you that where he is, we will be also. If you can just hold on and continue to think, even when you're sad, just think about the goodness of the Lord. Just think about what he's already prepared for you. Just think of how he's taken the riches of this world and place them in a place for you that's even going to be greater in appearance of that and in value than what you see now. People are killing for gold and diamonds. You're going to be walking on the streets of gold. Diamonds will be in the walls. What more can you get? Everything that's reflective of Christ. Why not take that in your life now and let a little of that light shine in your life now, knowing that in the midst of everything you're going through, God's got it. God can handle everything for you. He doesn't need your help. He's already done it. He doesn't even need you to try to come prepared to do anything because he's already doing it. Anything that you try to do cannot compare with what God is going to do for you. So my satisfaction in my studies and being able to bring it to you is let you know that God is looking out after you, that he's already made it for you. Don't listen to all this stuff that's going on in the world. There's more stuff that I don't know where they get this stuff from. I'm dumbfounded as to some of the things that they say, even about the New Jerusalem. I didn't show you about what some of the other ethnic groups say and believe, but one thing that caught my attention was with the Mormons. They believe that the New Jerusalem is coming down and is going to end up in Independence, Missouri. That sounded funny. But that's why they built that spiring temple over there that many of you have already passed by it, because they believe, and I don't know if this is true, that when Jesus comes, he's going to slide down that spiraling temple that they got over there in Independence. Well, the city is big enough that when it comes, it will cover the space of Missouri. Actually, I saw a picture where one man kind of drew it out that actually the New Jerusalem will reach from the Pacific Ocean just short of it, almost to the Atlantic Ocean. That's how wide it is. So you know that if that's that wide, then you know it's going to cover uh, from north to south America. That's a huge area. But then when you take and consider how tall it is, if you could do the square footage, I believe the square footage of the cube will be bigger than the world. God's got it. He's just amazing. Don't take it lightly about the God that you serve. I don't care what man says, how diluted his words might be, how selfish he might be in what he thinks that he might be a God himself. Don't be conformed to that stuff. God is just magnificent. He's glorious, and he's done a magnificent job in preparing for us. He's been preparing for us and waiting for us. And you know what the scripture says, to be absent in the body is to be present with the Lord. Do you not understand that sometimes I believe God gets great joy when a person leaves this earth and goes to heaven, because he has shared that person with us. Now he has great joy enjoying that person with himself. We look at death, I believe, the wrong way. We ought to be excited to know that when a person dies, only if they've accepted Christ, that they're going to a place that's just beyond conversation. There's no more pain. There's no more of the things that we go through. This world is not our home. We will leave this place. So be encouraged. Every day you get up and your back hurts and your pains and your joints and your knees and everything bothers you. Be assured that where it's going to be a day that God's going to bring you home, that problem will not exist. You don't have to listen to deaths and people killing one another every day. That day's going to be over for us. And we're going to go to a brand new place. So let's get ready. Just make sure that you don't lose your rewards. And you get your rewards by doing the good things, the good deeds that God asks you to do here on earth. As you do that, he rewards you for all of that. He even gives you crowns. Don't lose that by giving them up and becoming sarcastic and kind of turning your back on the Lord and those things. You lose all your rewards. Don't lose those. Carry them through, because in that New Jerusalem, there will be different positions for people to be in. I don't care what position I'm in, but it's a joy knowing that God will reward us. There's different degrees of rewards when we go to that New Jerusalem. Just like there's different degrees of punishment in hell. Remember that. God's got it already figured out. I'm doing everything I can to stay on God's good side. I want to make sure he's happy with me, where we can hear him say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Don't let man steal that joy. Don't let man take away your satisfaction of serving God. Just hang on to it. He'll be right there. Unmute those mics. Let's ask some questions. Talk to me. Ask me whatever you want. Let's go through that. Who wants to unmute their mic and talk to me first?
Reverend Bradford,
Yes,
there
ma'am.
will be no sea.
No, see it be gone.
Now,
No, what?
I read in Revelation, the last chapter, that where the God is going to dry up the sea.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. I will be doing a study on the millennium. We must not cross the millennium period with the New Jerusalem. There's nothing going to dry up in the New Jerusalem, because what God will have there will be a river that flows down the middle of the street that will be the everlasting water for us, just like he's going to have the tree of life. The
Thank you.
the the tree that the rivers that dry up is things that is starting to happen now while we're alive.
Yes,
Uh, that's going on now. That will go on through into the tribulation period. That's tribulation issues. So as we study, that's why it's so important, and I try to keep everybody together and not miss anything, because these different elements are at different times in history. Right now, we're living during the church age, then the rapture of the church. Then we're going through the tribulation period. Then we're going to have a wars again. The tribulation period. During that after the tribulation period, there will be those who are called tribulation saints. They will go into the millennium, which is right after the tribulation. During the tribulation of the millennial period, Satan will be cast into the bottomless pit. The millennial period is 1,000 years. At the end of 1,000 years, Satan will be loose from the bottom of the pit, even his demons. And then when they come out, there will be a war. I'll explain that to you when we talk about the millennial period. Satan will try to take those of the earth and try to wage war against Christ on earth. That's when Christ comes back and he kills all of them that had tried to come up against them. Then we have the great white throne judgment. After the great white throne judgment, God destroys the heavens and the earth and brings a new heaven and an earth and brings down the new Jerusalem, which that is everlasting. So the sea being dried up that you referred to is things that's happening now that's going to go through the tribulation period. I don't believe the dried rivers will be an issue during the millennial period, because Christ will have his reign on earth during the millennial time, but that's not the new Jerusalem. Christ reestablishes Jerusalem on earth, reestablishes the territories for the 12 tribes of Israel, which he promised them in the beginning. Then we go through that 1,000 years. Then we go into the destruction of the heavens and the earth, and then we get the new earth and the new Jerusalem. So that the waters that dried up, when you read that, that's telling you what he's doing during the time of destruction. I think we read that in Revelation 21. Let's read that starting at verse 1. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. This is John talking. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. That's during the destruction when Christ destroys the heavens and the earth. He says, and there was no more sea. Those are key words to let you know that this world is over. Then in verse 2 he says, and I, John, saw a holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven. So that is the transformation between verse 1 and verse 2, according to John, based upon what he saw.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?